Whether you're watching, listening or reading this, welcome back to the Runpreneur vlog. We're on a mission to raise £1 million for children's charities by run vlogging on consecutive days the distance of one lap around the world. It is a staggering 40,075 kilometres. It's going to take somewhere in the region of 11 years to accomplish, so plenty of time to raise that money. I'm going to commit to running whilst vlogging a minimum of 5 kilometres every day, and I'll even do it barefoot style. So for those regulars who know when I vlog about my passions, which are entrepreneurship and running, and most importantly how these topics link together to help people overcome the emotions of stress, overwhelm and anxiety by using exercise as a release mechanism. And it is a beautiful morning today. The sun is out, the temperature is quite warm, but it's a nice cool breeze today, so it feels much nicer to run in than it's been for the past few days. And it is Tuesday Tactics today, where we discuss all things business systems and outsourcing. And today's topic is how to outsource your social media content repurposing. So as always, please support the challenge by subscribing to the content and giving it a like and a share. And as always, let's get started. So, outsourcing your social media content repurposing. Now, this is going to be a little bit off the cuff today because it's a really complex topic, this, and it's taken the best part of a year to build it out to what my repurposing process is today. And the one disclaimer I'll add now is that outsourcing your social media content repurposing can be quite a labour intensive in terms of human resource requirement. Okay, so what I mean by that is that, you know, we talk about outsourcing and how you can outsource kind of low level work to begin with. Now, social media content repurposing requires people. Now, you can use some automation tools, but your reach gets quashed and there's you get a lot of penalties by using kind of automated software. So inevitably, if you can get people to do this for you, then you're going to get a much better outcome. So the first message is that you'll need some human support to kind of do this effectively. That's in my honest opinion. So when I go back about 13 months now, when we started the Runpreneur vlog, and at the very, very early stages, I was editing the videos, I was publishing the videos, I was kind of doing, not everything, because I already had virtual assistants in the team, but I was trying to understand the process because I wasn't familiar with it. You know, it is a bit of a conundrum, isn't it, really, when you look at each social media platform. I mean, it's a beast in itself, each platform, let alone all the different formats you can use, the paid advertising you can use as well, which we don't even do at this stage, but all the different formats you can do in every single different platform. It's really quite confusing when you go deep on this stuff, and then especially when you add more and more platforms to the mix, it just comes with so much more workload associated with it. So to begin with, I focused on one social platform, and that was ultimately Facebook, because I had the biggest following on Facebook at the time, and my engagement was always higher on Facebook than the other platform. So one thing you will need to be aware of is the differences in demographics that use each platform. Younger demographics will generally use TikTok, Instagram more. Kind of Facebook now is almost kind of 25 plus, maybe even a bit higher, maybe 30s and above, kind of Facebook. YouTube, you get a really wide mix, but again, generally speaking, you'll get more younger demographic focusing on YouTube. You've then got LinkedIn. It's a more professional network, so you get more professionals on it, so usually it's an older demographic on LinkedIn. And Twitter, never really got to grips with Twitter, if I'm being brutally honest. We do repurpose onto it, but it's very much like a leafleting kind of alert system. It's like leafleting for social media. It's one way someone described it, and I think that's a really good description. So understand your demographic and focus on whichever social platform is going to be more relevant to your message and your target audience to begin with. Okay, so that's really, really important. And then just test the publishing process. So put some content out there and test it. Okay, you're not going to get it right to begin with. And one of the things that got me through, because it was quite concerning to begin with, when you start publishing content, you literally fixated on your phone. How many views do I get? How much engagement do I get? I mean, to be honest with you now, I leave it to my team to compile some reports on my engagement and views and how each piece of content is performed. I don't even look anymore, whereas in the early stages you're so fixated on how did it do. And it is, what you have to remember as well is you will get some pieces of content that will do better than others. That's inevitable. And although you can use data to help you decide on what content is best to produce, you do get a lot of kind of curveballs in there as well. I mean, I've had really, really poor pieces of content I've published and it's got really good engagement. Yeah, I thought I've done really, really good pieces and had nothing, and I'm trying to follow, data-led decision making here as well. So the message here is don't get caught up too much on what one piece of content will do, whether it's bad or good. You want to look at the overarching trend and the consistency of how you get your content out there. So once you've explored whichever platform and you've explored how to publish, then if you've got some form of administrative support, just put a basic checklist in place. Right, what happened? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Just write a list really, really easily. You can then give that list to your virtual assistant or administrative support, and they can map this out in a flowchart. Now, the reason you do a flowchart is because this process is going to grow and evolve quite dramatically, quite quickly. So it's very, very easy just to do a very quick checklist on, posting on Facebook. It might be, upload your video, put your title in, put your description or copy in, put your tags in, make sure the subtitles on the video, it could whatever. It could be a really simple checklist. And then your administrative support put that into a flowchart. But what then happens is when you add the next platform or the next platform, the next format, then you don't want to have 34 different checklists, okay, because it's just confusing. So by giving those checklists to a VA or an administrative support to map out in a flowchart, they'll add them in the right order, or they'll build out the flowchart over the course of time. So what you've then got is this process that people follow. And yes, there might be multiple things happening simultaneously, which you can do in flowcharts, but it just gives the whole process some structure, okay? And it doesn't make it too overwhelming and confusing because you can see every single action in a visual format. Okay, so when you've got that in place, okay, you're going to start testing it, and then you're going to get feedback. So pass it over to your admin team to start publishing for you, and when they start publishing, they're going to make a few mistakes. It's inevitable, but you're going to have regular communication with them and feedback on what worked and what didn't. So you're going to check what goes out, just make sure you're happy with it. If it's not in the format you want, you give feedback, and then the flowchart gets amended or the checklist gets amended, and it just builds out over the course of time. The one thing you do need to be aware of, though, when you're getting other people to manage your social platforms, is access facilities. So the easiest way to do this with social media is to try and do as many things through pages or company pages as possible, because with personal profile, there's no kind of team or admin rights that you can pass over. So unless you really trust that administrative support or virtual assistant implicitly, you're basically giving them access to your whole personal profile. So it's a risky affair. Now, I do it because I've used some of the team members that I have years and years, and I do trust them absolutely implicitly. Amazing team, but I would never have done this from day one. Okay, so that's really, really important. It all comes down to your risk profile and how well you trust your team to share your personal profiles. The work around this is if you publish on pages and company pages, product brand-based pages, and then share to personal profile, then you're getting the best of both worlds by doing that. But you have to be aware that when you share something to somebody's profile, the reach is going to be smaller than it would be if it was published natively on that personal profile. But as you do this over time, you can hopefully build up more of a following on your pages than your personal profiles. But there's definitely a reason to put them on both, in my honest opinion. So there's a little bit of a consideration there. So what you'll find now is you've now got this flowchart being built out, and once you're happy with something, with what part of it as it's performing, you get your administrative support or virtual assistant to record a video for each step. only a short video, it might be 30 seconds, a minute long, and then they're going to add that link to that video. If you're storing it in Loom or Google Drive or whatever video recording software you're going to do, you're going to add that video to that section of the flowchart. Now what that will do is then if you get a complete stranger come in, they'll be able to click that section of the flowchart and a training video will be produced, and they'll see exactly how to do that section of the task. Okay, so really, really simple, but so effective. And what you've got, because you've got a flowchart, it's easy to drag and move things around and evolve it as you improve the process, but the video links are still going to remain attached to each section of the flowchart. So it's a really, really good way of building out quite complex processes is by using flowchart software. Now we use diagrams.net. I think it's owned by Google, free to use, amazing piece of software. I used to use Lucidchart, probably slightly better. The only downside is it's quite expensive, whereas diagrams.net is completely free and it does pretty much everything that Lucidcharts would do. It's just not quite as user friendly. So that's my take on flowchart or process mapping software. So then you might choose to add a second, so basically what you're going to look at to begin with, you're going to look at one platform in one format. You're then going to look at maybe 2 or 3 different formats within that platform. So for Facebook, you might decide you want it on your company page, you want it on your profile, you want it on your group. Obviously the group is different, the page process is slightly different to the profile, and you might want it on your stories. So there could be 4 different formats that it goes out in just to Facebook. So once you've exhausted what you want to do with one platform, and your flowchart will be getting quite complicated by this stage, because just for the nature of how many different formats you're publishing in, you then introduce the next social platform. Okay, and then you've got to think about the editing requirements to make it suitable for that platform, because every platform has different formats that it requires and different processes associated with it. So you're then going to add the next one, and you're going to follow the same principle. You're going to build it out nice and slowly. You'll integrate it into the master flowchart so that whoever is processing it, whoever is publishing the work, can see exactly how to do it. The next thing to consider is adding, somebody's assigning each stage in the flowchart to somebody. Okay, because there might be simultaneous work, and you'll find when you start this, you can probably rely on just one person. But now I repurpose to 34 different formats, that we've got the best part of 10 people working on this every single day. So I'm not saying you need 10 to do this, but I have pretty heavy video editing requirements, and the subtitling, the blog, podcast all takes quite a lot of work. So we have a team of 10 in total, including myself, that work on this whole process. But to begin with, 1 is fine. 2 or 3 will certainly get you a long way down the process, depending on the amount of editing that's required on your content. But once you've got this flowchart mapped out, video instruction attached to each section, and somebody's face assigned to each section, right, you can then create a master task template. Okay, so this is when, once you've got the flowchart and you start repurposing on a more frequent basis, you can then build this into a task template with a step-by-step checklist. And this is when you can start building pipelines out within your project management software so that you can track all the pieces of content that's gone out. Now, it might be when you start only publishing 1 a week. If you're doing 1 a week, you might not need the whole pipeline at this stage, but I do 1 a day. And when I do 1 piece of content every day, I do a long form, a 1-minute summary and a 30-second snippet, and they go out to 34 different places in total. So there's a lot of moving parts. And that happens every day. So we have a pipeline where we're mapping the different stages. We have all the actions listed in a task template with a checklist attached to them, and then people know to move it to the next stage, for the next stage, to the next stage, and who has to deal with that at each stage of the way. So it's a bit of a well-oiled machine now. Now we're constantly looking at it and looking to evolve it and improve it, because we're looking at launching our social media agency towards the back end of this year, where we're going to be doing this for other people. But at the moment we're just doing it for me, and we're perfecting it for me because it's so relevant to the fundraising ambitions that I have. So hopefully that helps. I've talked to you about what social media content repurposing is. I've talked to you about how to go about it in a very step-by-step, building it up process. I've talked about what I do, and how I do it. So why should you do this? Well, if you want to grow your business in any way, or grow your reach or your reputation in any way, shape or form, you have to be putting regular content out on social media. I mean, it's all about in growing traffic. You know, and when we're talking about growing traffic, we're then looking to get attention from that traffic. So if you're looking to grow a business, your brand, your reach, your personal reputation, your influence, you have to be producing content regularly. I would always recommend daily, but it takes a long time to build up to daily. So start with consistently what you can achieve. It might be once a week, once a month, once every fortnight, but then build it up, build it up, build it up, build it up. Because the 4 steps to growing your traffic in this order is content creation is number 1. Number 2 is collaborations. Number 3 is affiliates. Number 4 is paid ads. Number 1 you've got to get right before you move on to number 2. If you haven't got any content out there, who's going to collaborate with you? Because they're not going to know who you are. So you have to get number 1 done right. And it's the most important, as a lot of marketeers would state. So that's pretty much it for me today. So as always, if you have any questions on this stuff, drop me a comment. I'll respond to everyone. If it's a bigger question, I'll do a separate vlog episode and I'll tag you in. Do check the links in my bios where you can check how I'm progressing on my challenge to raise £1 million for children's charities by run vlogging on consecutive days a distance of 1 lap around the world. And you can find out how you can support financially and non-financially the challenge. And all that's left to say is that my content is always about entrepreneurship and running, and how we can help people overcome the emotions of stress, overwhelm and anxiety by using exercise, or in my case, run vlogging as a release mechanism. Okay, so what is a release mechanism? Well, it's the process of dealing with the day-to-day, week-to-week stresses we all experience in the form of stress, okay, the pressures in the form of stress. Okay, it's how we kind of process what's happened, gain clarity, refocus, clear our heads and move on. That is the release mechanism. If you don't have a release mechanism in your life, those stresses, you'll constantly feel stressed. Those stresses get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they evolve to overwhelm. Overwhelmed where you've got too many stresses going on in your life, you don't know how to deal with them because there's too many, and you kind of have a seizure, you freeze, you procrastinate, and then very, very quickly that will evolve to panic and anxiety, where you're flirting with the edges of mental health related issues. If we use pressure in a pipe as an analogy, the pressure starts with daily, weekly stresses. It then evolves to overwhelm, so the pressure gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it gets to panic and anxiety, where the pressure is so strong the pipe eventually bursts. And in that scenario, you will have a mental breakdown unless you have some kind of release mechanism to relieve and control that pressure that builds up on a day-to-day basis. So I've been there. I've lost businesses, I've lost business partners, I've almost been bankrupt because of my inability to clear these daily stresses on a recurring basis. And it's a horrendous place, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. But it's no coincidence that since doing this running vlog for the past 13 months, I've made more progress in all facets of my life than I have done in the previous 5 years. So hopefully there's enough social proof that this stuff really works. I've also helped and coached over 200 entrepreneurs over the years on exactly this topic. So I should be well qualified to talk to you about it. So that's pretty much it for me. My olive branch to you is, if you are struggling with this, drop me a message, okay? There's no catch. Runpreneur is not for profit, okay? The value, content and help that I provide is always free of charge. Yes, we raise money for children's charities, but that's always optional, never essential. Now, if you need help, drop me a message, okay? I'm not looking for anything in return. I'll get you a step-by-step guide out to you on how you can find your release mechanism, which is so important, and will get you back on the right path to success, to whatever that looks like to you. So that's pretty much it for me today. As always, stay positive, stay happy, and I'll see you tomorrow.